Hey y'all, welcome to part one of what I'm calling Retrograde Rhythm. We'll be starting with Venus retrograde and just to kind of see what these energies mean for us, what they call for us to be doing over the next 35 days that are left in this Venus retrograde period. It's a really sacred time. It's a time about our bodies. It's a time about healing. A lot of things are coming up for review, as you've been seeing me post on the Daily Flow. Now, when I intended to do this video was for it to be released right around the time that Venus went into retrograde, which was the 15th, I believe, or Wednesday the 13th. Well, on Thursday, I believe it was, I got so sick. I do not get sick. I was sick. Let's just call it that. And vomiting, nausea, lots of processing and movement out of my body. And I checked in with some other people and then also I just let other people know, my colleagues, light workers, that I was going through this, and they're like, it's interesting because I was nauseous. And then I saw some other light workers say that they had experienced like a lot of nausea. And so something's going on a collective level. I already talked about in the full moon of Scorpio when we were doing a lot of releasing of false timelines. So possibly like a lot of grief. And now that we've grieved, the collapse or the reality of what we thought the possible outcomes were, our body may be adjusting, but also there's probably a wave of energy. So that's the first thing I want to ask about, is like why we were experiencing, and if it wasn't literally through your body feeling sick, just emotional waves of potentially grief, triggers, sadness, right? So what was that about? Okay. So we got the female issue. Pombajita is actually this energy, which is collective energy, feminine energy, which is actually rooted the history of, I don't want to say it wrong, but I believe it's like the Congo Basin area. I'm going to want to look it up right now, but I'm not going to do it. And I got the Two of Water and the Two of Air. So what's coming through bottom of the deck is the Two of Fire. Underneath that is the Magician. So a resurgence of feminine energy, a balancing of the feminine in our literal physical bodies, and unleashing of feminine energy. So for the collective, this is a big adjustment. And so when we talk about what is feminine energy, it's that receptive energy, that flow, that it's what comes within the stillness, which we're being forced to do right now in many cases. And so when the collective is still, what happens? We're able to probably receive more of this energy. And so that's where that came from. So if there was like an intense moment, it was like probably, for me, it felt like I was processing it. I didn't have any emotions. So it felt like my body was processing maybe what the collective was experiencing. But if you experienced a lot of sadness or like a lot of triggers or anger or something, it was maybe sacred rage coming through for you about what had been happening to the feminine. Maybe you were experiencing grief and sadness about how much your feminine energy has been repressed, how you haven't been allowed or haven't allowed yourself to just sit with the feminine and or sit within feminine energy, meaning rest, creativity, things we think of as self-care, but also literally just peace and not having to go all of the time and not being able to know what to do with yourself. looking for something else to do, looking for an escape, looking for distractions versus just sitting with the healing that's being available. And so some of us may have had to be forced to be still or forced to reckon with some very difficult emotions that we've been ignoring and repressing. If we've been doing the work, they just want me to keep going. If we've been doing the work to heal from things that have triggered us in the past or harmed us in the past or disappointed us in the past, this was this last bit of processing. You think you cried it all. You think you've sat with it all. There was more. There was still more. Probably a depth or a level that you couldn't have coped with in times past until now. You wouldn't have been able to handle that level of grief and pain. So it was a balancing of our energy. All right, so what does Venus retrograde have in store for us? When it comes to our body, what do we need to be doing? When it comes to they're correcting us. That's not what we want to talk about. I'm like, okay. They're just going to tell me what's going to happen during Venus retrograde. Right. So the bottom of the deck is the Four of Earth. Finding our balance, learning boundaries, learning how to protect our heart, and learning how to mind our business, which is what we talked about in May. For the May energies, we are about to be in Gemini season very shortly. However, the focus is still boundaries during Venus retrograde. Now, this is about new communities, new soul groups, new communication and contacts that actually will bring tangible benefit to us. So yes, community for the sake of community, just to feel supported, to feel safe, new friends, new connections, etc. But this actually feels like friends with financial benefits, right? So not friends with those kind of benefits in a Venus retrograde, because we're not really going back to old patterns and behaviors. We're protecting our heart. We're reclaiming our sensuality for ourselves. Not that it's not to be shared with another person, but right now we're rebuilding our boundaries. We're looking at the mother, looking at ourselves, the divine mother, as healing, as a mirror for our healing, looking for divine wisdom, sacred wisdom, and knowledge for our bodies. It's not so external right now, unless it's about your paper, unless it's about communication, unless it's about collaboration, unless it's about building community. So let's get more about this community building energy that can happen in the next 4 weeks. I'll take all of that. That was beautiful. T. Bottom of the deck is Temperance for now, our higher self. Alchemy and balancing again of the polarities, I guess you could say. So the first thing we got is the Nine of Earth, Nine of Pentacles, Nine of Discs. But then we got the Devil. Then we got the Eight of Wands. And then we got Justice or adjustment. Contracts. New soul contracts is what's happening. This idea of having to do everything by yourself. Yes, it's your legacy. Yes, you're building your wealth. Yes, you get to benefit from walking and living in your purpose, but it's not about you. It's not about you only. You don't have to carry the burden by yourself. Let's get more on this Devil energy. Oof. it also feels like a part of that purging that we were experiencing was about people who we were in community with that did not mean us well at all. That, ooh. Even though the devil is here, it feels like spirit quarantined them from us. Let's get more on this devil energy. And unfortunately, they are already in this energy, so we were separated. We were quarantined from them. So there was a separation so that we could remain in our sovereignty, so that we can be free to move about, make these positive connections, do this new thing, because they were still in this old energy while we were growing. We were in this state of independence, of this focusing on building. They were in that old energy that we're moving on from because we're ready to make new contracts for our soul. It's almost like it's no failure, right? But there was a threshold, or there was a choice, or there was a point where they had to decide to let something go. It seems like they are going to end up having to repeat a cycle, and you can't be around for those lessons. You're here with this new contract. So I'll still get more on the devil just to clarify. Yeah, they're just stubborn. 4 of Swords, 7 of Pentacles, and Prince of Discs. It's the level of immaturity, or I should just, yes, immaturity, but the maturity and the idea. Whoever these people were that we were separated from, there's some selfish energy here. There's some thinking everything is about them energy here. There's some mind games. That's why we're here. That's why things got shuffled around. We are operating on new karma. We're establishing new karma with all of our actions. So this message from water is what's next. Now that we recognize the opportunity that Venus retrograde brings to meet new people, to go into new energy, to communicate what we are offering, to put ourselves out there. This is similar to Chariot energy for me. So Cancer energy is getting us ready for a Cancer season, to be honest. Venus retrograde will go into Gemini season, take us all the way basically through Gemini season to prepare us for this Cancer energy where we're going to shine. So what are we needing to do to get ready for this Cancer energy? It won't be easy to get this coin. Ace of Discs. We're going to come up against a lot of resistance, so we have to be brave. That is why it's so important for us to hold boundaries, because this devil energy is still going to be trying to peek through to get us to circle back into what hurt us, what harms us. This is spiritual warfare, but it's an old pattern of behavior. So we are taking this retrograde time to evaluate what held us back before, what may have gotten some folks who we know and love, who we did have to separate from, what got them caught up. Reflect on ourselves where we see those same patterns and behaviors in us, and lay this down. Doing the work to heal from some of the heartbreak, working with our ancestors that are beneficial, petitioning that continue healing be done for our ancestors. This is also about ancestral karma and contract, past life karma and contracts. If that's something that resonates for you, you might want to, book a personal reading and kind of explore what that might be or where that might be coming up. But on a very practical level, something that we can do is reflect on battles so that we can have a new strategy. So that when these tests start to pop up, like old fears, old thoughts, they're lies, first of all, to get you to prevent you from shining. It's literally spiritual interference and fear trying to get you to continue to go forward. What about last time? Last time you tried to do this, It doesn't matter because the timing wasn't there and maybe the people weren't there. Now you're meeting new people. This is new. This is grace. This is a fresh start. And not starting over. This is literally a new path that's leading you to this wealth and abundance and love and support of community. So just a time of reflection of what went wrong in the past, the mistakes that you don't want to make again, having a clear mind, honest conversations and tender conversations with yourself so that you know, okay, this is what I have to do now, and I don't want to do that again. And then we have the Ace of Water, which is still this Cancer energy. It's also a time for us to fill our cup, clear our emotional waters, allow the grief, allow the processing to come, but also rejoice in the new that is opened up for us. So let's get more. Ooh, this is rebirth. We got the Five of Pentacles, the Death, and the Fool. We are changing. We are not who we used to be. We have been doing the work. And we're coming out on the other side of this Venus retrograde into Cancer season as new creation. Thank you, God. We've shed the old. We are successfully shedding the old. And I know that the Cancer messages, particularly the new moon in Cancer, are going to be very potent for how we begin to walk this new path. Finally, we got Oshala or Obatala, which for me is representative of Archangel Michael, Archangel Michaela. It's the feminine energy of that archangel. Well, maybe I should keep pulling from this deck because I grabbed the wrong deck, but maybe it wasn't wrong. Let's get more on what this is. Healing of the masculine as the feminine heals. Bottom of the deck right now is the Five of Water. And again, we're talking about masculine energy, right? So the way and underneath that is the Lovers, which is Gemini season. Gemini, but also our higher selves and the balance of the masculine and feminine. So the healing, that the independent healing work that is being done by the feminine gives room and space for the masculine to shift and change the way that it behaves. So you see how even this masculine energy here in this Obatala card or Oshala card has a rose and leads with grace and not with the sword. You have the Star or the Man card here, which is literally the masculine healing. It's Aquarian energy. The Mother, Yemoja, and the Five of Air. It feels like a restructuring or a new strategy of how we operate on a practical level on a day-to-day basis. So this is how we're going to do things from now on. This is how we're going to work from now on. These are our boundaries and settings from now on. There's no more self-harm, honestly, is what it feels like to be in relationship with anybody because we know our worth, we know our value. And it puts the masculine energy or principle in a position to do the same, to do the same work of understanding their worth and their value. Yep. Bottom of the deck now is still the same. Well, it's this Five of Swords energy, which is about transition, but it's also, for me, it feels like a transition of the way that we think about things. And then, but the cards that I actually got were the Two of Pentacles, the Two of Wands, and the Ace of Cups. An expansion of the heart space. The way that we think about things now, where we will lead with heart, lead with spirit, lead with our passion, not be so caught up in the details or the practicality or the fear. But so this is the new way. This is what we're changing when it's about shedding of the skin. This is what this time is about. Getting to know ourselves, getting to know what our real desires are, what it is that we want, what type of new contracts do we call in. This is manifestation. This is powerful time of manifestation. And we use it and take advantage of it by getting still, embracing the stillness, acknowledging the old and releasing the old gently. Releasing the old gently and tending to the new things that we are trying to create and trying to manifest diligently, and holding firm boundaries from what will pop up, trying to distract us and drag us back into that old space. So we really are on guard of the new that's being birthed with us. Learning new ways of attachment as you're coming into these new soul groups and these soul contracts. Keep things pure. Keep things focused on an end goal. If you're working on projects, watch the messiness as far as, like, I've talked about this on the daily flow, but like basically leading with the trauma. We're trying to avoid trauma bonding now. We have better boundaries in this new threshold that we're passing into after Venus is out of retrograde. We're learning and we're leaning into profitable, fulfilling, if it's not about business and money, relationships where we respect our value, we respect their boundaries, we listen and communicate boundaries well, etc. So that is our Venus retrograde message. I love you so much, and be on the lookout for the other messages, which we'll talk about Pluto retrograde, Saturn retrograde, etc. Because it's a lot going on, y'all. Okay, and then we got eclipse season coming up this summer, so it's a lot of activity in the spirit. It's a lot of activity in our lives, which is interesting to think about in a time of isolation, especially as things are starting to open back up, which will greater intensify the amount of, honestly, death and grief and confusion to the old way, to the way we're used to things working. So community is important at this time. If you'd like to book a personal reading, you can do that here on the website. Love you.